Welcome to Nightmare Echoes. Listen, scream, and embrace your horror obsession. I'm your host, Eleazar, and in this episode, Steven is here as we continue our Scream Marathon with Scream 2, the sequel that proves that lightning can strike twice, especially when you work for the props department. How does Scream 2 manage to top its own meta-commentary? Did the higher body count raise the stakes or just the budget? And which death hit the hardest the first time you watched? If you dare follow us, all the links are in the description. Monday on the podcast, Scream 3. But until then, a movie that turns college into a full-blown blood drive, Scream 2. Hello everybody, welcome back to Nightmare Echoes. I'm joined again by Steven. Steven, how's it going?
Hey, I'm happy to be here today, and we're continuing your series with Scream. We're going to talk about Scream 2.
Right, which came out in 1997, 1 year after the first one came out. Directed by Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson. Stars all the same people before: David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, Jamie Kennedy. This time we add Sarah Michelle Gellar, Lauren Metcalf, Jada Pinkett. Liev Schreiber is also back, who had a small role in the first one, much bigger role in this one.
No, I found it exciting that Danny Elfman did one of the songs for Scream 2. I'm a big Danny Elfman music fan.
This one had a budget of $24 million and made $172 million. Runtime is 120 minutes, so 2 hours. Picking up after the first movie, this is a couple years later. The setting here, instead of high school, is college. But before we get to that, our opening scene is at a movie theater where Jada Pinkett is playing Maureen. Her boyfriend is Omar Epps, who plays Phil. They're going to the theater. They're talking about how she doesn't like scary movies. When they get inside, they are giving away Ghostface costumes to everybody. And the woman that is giving away the costume, the usher there, is a woman that had won a contest to appear in the movie. So she got like one line in the movie, got to hand out costumes to these characters, which I think is kind of cool.
And now it was a free movie, right? And I think or a discounted movie, and that's why he wanted to take his girl to see that and not pay money in another place. And she was complaining about, how she didn't like that type of movie. But the movie's name is Stab.
Right. And when they get in that theater, Red Right Hand is playing, which played in the first movie, and I think it plays in all the movies except for Part 4. I think that's right. What we see, Stab, is based on the book by Gail Weathers. Heather Graham here is playing Casey Becker, who was originally played by Drew Barrymore in the first movie. They added a shower scene to add what they called their psycho moment. But in the audience, it's funny because they allude to the fact that we see her nude. We don't see her nude. The people that were watching the movie also didn't see her nude because they never filmed her nude.
Her back or something
right,
like that.
Right, her back and her feet. But yeah.
Horrible thing that happened in the 90s. It seemed like a lot of movies that came out, they were action or horror, and there were black people on it, and they were the first ones to die. And I thought it was sort of sad. Why are they having a black couple here dying at the beginning here? Or you suspect they're going to die at the beginning of the movie? I don't want to see that.
Well, they were poking fun at the trope that they saw in the movie. That people say are in movies. Although, in watching a lot of horror movies, it's not always true that they're the first people to die. Their characters often do die, but they're not always the first to die in the movie.
Die before the end of the movie.
Yeah, but it is a trope.
Versus like The Last Voyage of the Dementor, where the black character
is the only survivor.
Is the only survivor at the end, but of course that's a 2020s movie.
Have you seen The Blackening?
No.
The tagline, I think, is something, I'm probably paraphrasing a little bit, but it's like 7 best friends that are black enter a horror movie. Who dies first?
Oh, gosh.
But it's a comedy,
all of them are gonna die.
And it's really good. I don't want to spoil it for you. It's
okay.
really good.
Okay. Well,
but
I'll give it
funny.
a shot.
Yeah.
Is it made in the 90s?
No, it was made just a few years ago.
Oh, so they don't die.
So Maureen wants to go get snacks, and she wants Phil's money to do so. The man who sells her the popcorn is Peter Deming, who is the cinematographer, who also has a cameo in the third movie. As she's heading back into the theater, Phil has a jump scare when he's wearing the mask, and he apologizes to her and tells her that he needs to use the bathroom.
She seems pretty startled easily by things at this point.
Oh,
like she's complaining about the movie, how it's not scary or whatever, but she's being startled very easily. I did notice right away that Stab follows the storyline almost 100% with the first Scream movie. And this was before I knew what was going on. I was like, oh, this is the same movie they're watching in the theater that we watched for
Right.
Scream.
Which happens again in part 4, where they're like, they comment on it like, wait, if they're watching the movie in a movie, when does the movie start? It's really interesting. So he goes in the bathroom, all the urinals are taken, everybody's wearing the ghost face masks. He goes into one of the stalls and hears something weird, and for some reason he puts his ear against the wall.
Yeah, it says, "Listen, Mama, I'll tell you why I did it." It was whispering. I had to put on subtitles to see what they were saying.
He's super creepy.
Yeah.
I don't know why he put his ear against the wall, but apparently the killer knew he was going to do that because he shoves a knife right through his ear.
Stabbed in the head through the stall wall. Now,
That's
like
some Michael Myers strength right there.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Then the killer comes out, sits down next to Maureen, and she doesn't realize it isn't Phil. She's talking way too much during this movie. And then she notices the blood on the person that is not Phil, who's still wearing that ghost face mask. He then stabs her repeatedly. She gets up in front of people. She's screaming for help. No one thinks it's real. They all think it's a stunt. She climbs up where the scream is and starts crying, and she dies there with no one helping her. And then we get the title card, Scream 2.
So I did notice all of the patrons there in the theater were just going nuts. They were wearing the ghost masks and stabbing each other with these fake knives, and it sort of just added to the chaos. So people didn't realize what was happening until it was too late.
Sydney's in her dorm room. She gets a prank call, which apparently is common for her. She now has caller ID. So when the person calls her,
Sydney, what's your favorite scary movie?
she is able to repeat the number of the person and the name of the person because she's just getting a lot of these stupid phone calls because apparently her dorm room number has gotten out there. We meet her roommate, Hallie, played by Elise Neal, who was in Logan and Hustle and Flow. Kevin Williamson is the talk show host on the TV. In an interview with Cotton Weary, is hanging in the room is a Freddy Krueger sweater, which we last saw the janitor wearing in the first movie. So that comes back. Hallie is trying to get Sydney to join a sorority that she's also pledging. Then they are told to check the news by some woman that's running by. The report says that 2 students' death shows a poster of stab. The tagline is, "This is gonna hurt." Whereas the tagline for this movie is, "Someone has taken their love of sequels one step too far." And then outside, the news crews are already trying to harass Sydney. And we cut to Randy's film theory class, where he's a student in there. Sarah Michelle Gellar, who played Buffy.
Hey, it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
She's playing Cece in this movie, and they're talking about Stab 2. Randy says that sequels suck. Who'd want to do that? And then we get Joshua Jackson in here, who's famous from Dawson's Creek. He has a line here where he says, "Stay away from you, bitch." In the script, he was supposed to say the line wrong from Aliens, but he said the line correctly. So Randy, who was supposed to be correcting him, says the wrong line instead. It's just weird that they kept the take where they messed up and Randy said the wrong line, which I found annoying.
Wow.
Like, you know what I mean?
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like, hey, he tries to correct him, but then quotes it wrong. But the scene seemed a little too juvenile. This is this conversation I remember having as like a junior high person about sequels. Like, I think we're all intelligent about sequels. Oh, what sequels are good? What sequels suck?
Yeah, now it's a college level class.
Right.
This is the stuff. I see where you're going.
Right. But the original cut was just an argument between Randy and Mickey, which they thought it made it too obvious that Mickey was the killer. So they went back to reshoot it to give Sarah Michelle Gellar and Joshua Jackson some scenes in there so it didn't point the finger just at Mickey.
In all these Scream movies, it's sort of like a whodunit to me.
Yeah.
I struggle to figure out
they're done
who
well.
it is.
They're done well.
So, it's done really well.
So
not that no spoilers there.
Yeah. But, I spoiled it already. But they asked Randy what he would do differently with the movie, and he said he would let the geek get the girl, which, interestingly, I think in Scream 1, the original script, Randy was supposed to end up with Sydney, which never happened. Then we get Randy walking outside with Sydney. He does some weird, funny accent, which people are always like, what is that accent about? But if you listen to the commentary, they say it's actually an impression of the movie's line producer, Daniel Lupi. So all the people in the commentary, they're like, he did an amazing accent. So or impression of Daniel Lupi. So they kept it in the movie.
Nobody else knew what it was.
Nobody else. Yeah,
Inside
it's an inside joke.
Totally.
Then we meet her boyfriend Derek, played by Jerry O'Connell, who I love from Sliders. He jumps over this railing to come get to her. Randy seems jealous right away. He's just coming in to check on her, how she's doing with the killings. Then we get to see Gail Weathers. We find out that they're threatening to pull the movie. We meet her new cameraman, Joel. And the other newscasters want to interview Gail. Debbie Salt, played by Laura Metcalf. They go into a press conference, and the officer is played by David Arquette's father. So the chief of police is David Arquette's father in real life.
Wow.
Randy thinks Gail got calf implants, and he wants to get a closer look. Sydney, Hallie, Derek, and Mickey are there when the Delta Lambda girls come over. They say they have their eyes on Sydney, although Hallie's the one that's really pledging, and you could see in Hallie's face that she's trying to get their attention, but they all want to get Sydney, not Hallie. And then we see that Mickey here has a camcorder, and he's recording all the events that are going on.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that right away.
Yeah.
But later there's some video footage that show up from events, and you have to wonder where it came from. So it's probably Mickey's camera. Very interesting.
Lambda say that it's weird that all this fuss is really about Sydney, not directly, but in a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of way. The two main Lambdas are Rebecca Gayhart, who was in Urban Legend and Jawbreaker, and Portia de Rossi, who was in Cursed and Stigmata.
Now, I know that we've just been introduced to Gail Weathers, but something stuck out about her character and her personality to me. She seemed very greedy. Like, she didn't want to pull a movie even though there have been murders. She wants to promote it. She's all about her story, her book. So that's just kind of setting the stage for who Gail might be.
Right, and I think Randy, in a scene coming up, references that she could be a killer because if it helped her write the new book, she would do it.
Right. And that's the kind of personality she has.
Right. Then Dewey comes back. Off of the distance, Sydney sees him. He seems lost, and we notice that he has a limp. Sydney updates Dewey on everything that's been going on. For example, she has a lead in a play that starts in just 2 weeks. And Dewey lets her know that he's going to go with the local police and he's going to hang around to make sure that Sydney is safe.
It's strange that he shows up out of the blue. Like,
yeah,
the old friend Dewey just shows up right around the time of these murders. So, like, this is why the whodunit kind of hits my head. Like, I don't know what's going on. There are a lot of players here. It's very interesting to try to figure out who the bad guy is. I had the benefit of reading the Harry Potter books before watching the movies. I don't know if you did that.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But when I was reading the books, I would always be confused as to, is this a good person or a bad person? Are they helping Lord Voldemort or are they not? And that's the same kind of feeling I'm getting here when I was watching the Scream movies. It's like, okay, are they a bad guy or a good guy? It's hard to tell. They've got this sarcastic smiles on everyone's faces. Ghost mask in real life.
As Dewey goes off, Derek, Randy, and Hallie come over to check on Sydney. Derek wants to know who that is. Sydney says he's kind of like our surrogate big brother. And Randy says there's nothing like a funeral to bring the family back together. Then Mickey goes on to say that the chief says the victim was stabbed 7 times and is cut off, which is interesting because it kind of mirrors how in the first movie, Stu was going on about them putting the liver in the mailbox and how he was stabbed.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Gail comes over and Gail brings Sydney and Cotton together. Cotton seems to be in real good spirits, but Sydney's upset. Cotton thought Sydney knew about this meeting, and if we recall, Cotton was the person that Sydney believed killed her mother in the first movie, and then we find out through the events of the first movie that he's innocent. So now, in this movie, he's trying to get his good name back, because he went to jail for a year.
He was falsely accused by Sydney.
Right.
And then he served time.
So Gail keeps pushing, so Sydney backhands her. Haley looks over at Joel and says, "Did you get that on film?" And he ad-libs back mockingly, "Yeah, I got that on film," which I think was hilarious because the actress in the behind-the-scenes interview says she had a great line there. She was excited about her line, and then he had to go and one-up her by mocking her with an ad-lib line, and it was so good that they kept it in the movie. So she was kind of annoyed. Cotton tells Gail that he thought they had an official interview, and Joel doesn't agree with how Gail handled it, but Gail tells him that he needs to check his conscience at the door. Then we have the scene where Dewey and Gail meet again. Gail walks and sees Dewey, who tells her that she should probably leave Sydney alone. She says she's just doing her job, and he says she doesn't care who she hurts in the process. She reminds him that she was the one that got punched, and he says he doesn't condone violence, but maybe she deserved it.
I like the interaction here between Gail and Dewey. I It's definitely flirtatious. You can tell there's something going on between them. But at the end, he's like, nice streaks. And Gail's like, well. I thought that was hilarious.
That's funny. So then we find out that Dewey got hurt from the things he wrote about him in the book. He even memorized the page number. And Dewey has a great line here where he says, how do you know my dim-witted inexperience isn't a subtle form of manipulation used to lower people's expectations, thereby enhancing my ability to effectively maneuver within any given situation?
And I think this is where Gail might have been sort of attracted to Dewey in some way.
It's great. Then we cut to the sorority party. Helly gives Sydney a cookie, and while Helly's eating it, Sydney just throws the cookie behind her, which I found funny. Like, she just threw it. Like, what? Then the two Lambdas come over. Sister Murphy has an amazing line where she says, hi. Oh, I really mean that. Hi. like, I believe you meant it. Like, when you said hi. Oh, that's great. Cece at the house alone at the Omega Beta Zeta house. She is sober sitting, so if anybody calls her and says she's in trouble, she can go rescue them and help them get back home safely. She's on the phone with somebody when she gets another call from Ghostface, but she thinks it's Ted. When she finds out it isn't, she's still very chatty with him. She's watching Nosferatu, which I think is awesome because she, being from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, is watching another movie. Although Buffy came out right after this.
Oh,
right. This
wow.
came out before she was in Buffy.
I didn't know that. I did like how confident she is in her character. The actress plays a very confident Cece, just like she did in Buffy.
And then another bit of trivia. The girl on the other end of the phone is never seen in the movie, but the voice is that of Selma Blair, who was in Cruel Intentions with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh, wow.
So she gets back on the other line and tells her friend that the guy on the other line was just trying to scare her. Then she starts to search the house. She goes out to the porch and comes back in, and Donnie is back at the house delivering us a jump scare. And it's funny because Donnie here, who's her sorority sister, but in Buffy season 5, magically Buffy gets a sister that never existed before named Dawn. So that was kind of funny too. But Donnie is played by Marissa Nichols from Spiral, which is Saw Part 9. And since you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. The phone rings again, and Donnie answers. Ghostface says it's Ted, so Donnie hands the phone over to Cece, though right when it happens, we see another Ghostface behind them in the house, so we know there are two Ghostface killers.
Just came in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Donnie leaves, and Cece locks the door. On the phone, she finds out it's Ghostface and tries to set off the house alarm, but since the killer is already inside the house, it won't do anything. But she does set the alarm. The camera setup is there to make us think that he's hiding behind an open door, but she checks it and he isn't there. The phone rings again and she picks it up. Ghostface jumps out of the closet for an attack, just like he jumped out of the closet for Sydney on the first movie. She gets scared and goes up the stairs, just like Sydney did in the first movie, using a potted plant to smash against Ghostface's head. Up on the top floor, Cece throws a bicycle at Ghostface. Ghostface picks her up and throws her through some double glass doors in the balcony, which sets off the house alarm. He then stabs her in the back twice, lifts her up, and throws her off the house, and she lands in the road, and there's a lot of blood.
Oh, no. To take a line from Buffy, the hardest thing in this world is to live in it. Be brave, live. But it's too late. So I may be dead, but I am still pretty.
Back at the party, Matthew Lillard is in the background of this scene, and he has blonde hair, and he's wearing a blue shirt with a white undershirt. He shouldn't be alive because that's Stu, but because he was dating Nev Campbell at the time, he was around, and they let him be in the background of the scene, but it's kind of blurry, so you can't really tell it's him.
Oh, interesting.
So Stu lives. The Lambdas are trying to sell Sydney on the sorority, and it's talking all about sex. One funny line is like, everybody thinks sororities are all about blowjobs, but it's not true. We only promote safe condom sex. Randy shows up at that moment to give Landa his drinks because he's excited about this notion. Mickey comes and continues their conversation with the class by saying Empire Strikes Back, as in that's a good sequel. And Randy replies that it isn't a sequel. It was a part of a trilogy and it was totally planned for the beginning. Derek asks Sydney how it's going and figures that she will not be pledging. The Lambdas come over to tell everyone that the police are at the Omega Beta Zeta's house. As they all rush out, we see a dog is running with the crowd. This dog belonged to Liev Schreiber, who played Cotton. He had asked Wes if a dog could be in the scene, and Wes asked if the dog could hit a mark, and Liev said he totally could hit a mark, and they did one take with the dog, and sure enough, he went exactly where he was supposed to. So Wes Craven was impressed.
How did you find this out?
It's in the behind the scenes footage.
Wow.
I love it. It's barely noticeable. Like one of these girls would have had a dog, and it's just there. But when they point it out, you go back. I can't not see it every time I watch this movie now. At the crime scene, Debbie Salt is the first on the scene and fills Gail on what she knows. Dewey is there and seems to be annoyed at Gail, and Joel is not happy to be near the crime scenes, but a simple line from Gail, "Do not fuck with me," is the right motivation he needs. Sydney and Derek watch from the Lambda's house, and when she goes back in to get her coat, the phone rings. Sydney answers the call at the Omega Beta Zeta house, and it's Ghostface. He says, "Hello, Sydney, remember me?" And 39 minutes into the movie is the first time they speak. Sydney asks what he wants, and he says her, and it's showtime. She replies, "Then show yourself, you fucking coward," and hangs up the phone. Unfortunately, Ghostface is in the room and says, "My pleasure." We had just saw that Derek was right outside the door. Now that the door is closed and he's standing right where Derek would have been, we think it might be Derek. But then we see that Derek is locked outside and he is trying to bang on the door. And as she is dodging out of the way of the knife goes through the door and Derek is almost stabbed in the head. He's missed by like 2 inches. So we know at least Derek's not this Ghostface. Derek finds a way through the back door, runs in after the killer. Dewey comes in to find Derek with his arm sliced. Derek points to where Ghostface went, and when he goes to the open door, we see the 2 Lambda girls asking if everything's okay. So are the 2 Lambda girls the killer?
Yeah, who do we trust at this point?
Right.
Because, like, while Derek was clearly missed with the knife,
yeah,
there could be 2 killers, right?
Yeah.
Or more. We don't know. And then he does that sort of suspicious thing where he's like, "I'm going to go run in and chase him," and then disappears behind a door.
Yep.
And then Dewey's like, "I'm going to go run in and find him and chase him." And so, like, yeah, I don't know. It could be one of the sorority girls. It could be Dewey. It could be Derek. I don't know.
Okay, so now we're at the hospital, and the cops are interviewing all of Sydney's friends. This scene was shot after principal filming, so a lot of the crew were in the scene, including Wes Craven. Mickey tries to comfort Sid at the hospital and starts to poison Sydney's mind against her boyfriend, Derek. And since in the last movie her boyfriend was Billy, she would be worried about this possibility. We cut to the police and Dewey, who think it was a little too easy for Derek. The next day, the chief is going over the list of Dewey, and when Gail connects that the victims' names are copies of the first movie. Cece is really Casey, as in Casey Becker. Phil's last name was Stevens, and Steve was the first person killed. People always think of Drew Barrymore's character, but Steve died before her. And then Maureen is the name of Sydney's mom. So Dewey wants to know what the chief is doing to keep Sydney safe, and he says that he has his 2 best detectives on her.
So they're trying to tie it to the Woodsboro murders, a copy of the Woodsboro murders.
Right.
But it seemed a bit far-fetched to me because there's no way that the timing could have been that perfect where the killer knew that Phil was going to come into the restroom and use that one particular stall on the other side of the... I don't know. I'm not buying it.
Yeah, in
the
commentary...
Interesting names.
Yeah. In the commentary, they said they think they've discovered a lot, but it's like any movie, you're finding clues, and some clues just don't matter. Because after this point, none of the other names line up.
Right.
So we cut to Sydney and Derek walking to campus, and in the distance we do see the 2 detectives. Sydney tells Derek that she's worried that if he stays close to her, he might be in danger. Derek is worried that under that, she seems to not really trust him right now. She says that she doesn't want him to get hurt, and he says he also doesn't want to see her get hurt. When she walks away, Derek looks back at the detectives, and the score becomes ominous, which makes us suspect Derek. The chief is telling Gail to take care. Dewey joins Gail when the chief leaves, and Dewey says he's willing to help investigate. He says he isn't there to get her a book, he's there to help Sid. Gail says, I want to help too and help myself. Dewey says, I'll smile when I catch the killer. Right then, Debbie Salt walks in and the other reporters come to ask Gail who she thinks the killer is. They ask about Sydney's dad. Debbie Salt says that his dad is out of the country, but doesn't that seem suspicious? And Debbie throws out that Dewey might be the killer, and Gail responds, Dewey's a good guy, unlike some of us.
And I was wondering, is this sarcastic irony? Because Dewey's always got that suspicious smile. Like, it's very sarcastic.
Yeah.
Well, he's not smiling, he said, right?
Right.
But he's got this serious kind of look on his face sometimes that, yeah, it's hard to tell. Like his emotions.
Right.
The actor hid them well.
Debbie then tells the other reporters that the killer is repeating what happened in Woodsboro. Then the killer might be from Woodsboro. Then we have the cafe scene where Mickey wants to know if Sydney would let him interview her for his documentary. Haley says that she turned down Dateline in 2020, but sure, for Mickey, no problem. Mickey says he's been putting a lot of thought into who the murders are and wants to know if they've checked out Randy. Both Derek and Haley think Randy is harmless. Then Sydney joins the group. Derek pulls out a chair for her, but she sits across the table from him instead of next to him, and you can see that he's disappointed. Haley wants to know which one of the officers is Kevin Costner, and Sydney breaks down their history, marital status, astrological signs, and sexual orientation, which seems to disappoint Haley because she had liked that one that it turns out to be gay. Mickey can tell that Derek is pensive and asks, Penny, for your thoughts? And he starts to quote, This morning, I woke up with this feeling that I didn't know how to deal with. And then he starts singing, and Mickey knows that he's doing the Top Gun scene.
He's totally standing on the tables and singing. The sorority girls are not looking amused.
One guy puts $1 in his pants.
Yeah.
Mickey
on the table.
Mickey starts getting up and dancing, and then he gives his letters, the Omega Kappa Beta, to Sydney. And it was funny. Behind the scenes, they said that a little bit of this was recorded in post, but most of it they just used from the actual recording. They did multiple takes. The problem is he did it in a different key every time. And so they didn't mind saying that the character's just not a good singer by cutting in those different clips of different keys. So it was fine.
Funny.
Yeah.
I was wondering, was there any symbolism in Derek now giving Sid the necklace with the Greek fraternity letters on it?
So the movie has this rule that may or may not be a real rule in fraternity culture that you can't give your letters to your woman, even though I think the Lambdas think it's really romantic, but his brothers in this movie think he's committed a big faux pas by giving up his letters. I don't know. I do know that the necklace is still there in the third movie.
Okay.
Like she wears the necklace in the third movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think that's kind of cool, right?
So I'm wondering if it comes back up later, I guess.
You mean after this
we'll
movie?
see. Yeah.
Okay.
Like with the letters, if there's any symbolism in particular to the letters of the fraternity. But I don't think, it doesn't sound like there is.
I think it just shows that after the events of this movie, she really cared for Derek. And so she's still wearing the letters when the next movie happens, which I think is kind of cool.
Right.
Then we get more from Stab. Tori Spelling is being interviewed for a role as Sydney in the new movie Stab, which was referenced in the first Scream movie, where Sydney says, well, with my luck, I'll probably get cast as Tori Spelling. So Tori Spelling was really happy to go along with this joke and play this character. But we get a clip from Stab where Owen Wilson is playing Billy and David Schwimmer is supposed to play Dewey, although we don't see him playing Dewey. David Schwimmer is a co-star of Courtney Cox in Friends. Dewey and Randy discuss the rules of a sequel. Number 1, the body count is bigger. Number 2, death scenes are always more elaborate, more blood, more gore, carnage candy. Number 3, if you want a sequel to become a franchise, never ever, and he doesn't get to finish his line because Dewey wants to know who the killer is. Then Randy goes over the suspects. Derek is the boyfriend. Hello, Billy Loomis. But Randy said it's been done before, so the sequel needs to be different. So he names Mickey as the freaky Tarantino student. Mickey's pre-med. He would be able to stab without injuring anything important. Randy says, though, if Mickey's a suspect, then Randy himself is a suspect. And Dewey says, maybe you are a suspect. Randy points out, well, if I'm a suspect, you're a suspect. And to Dewey's like, good point. And then they move on. Randy names Haley Sydney's roommate. And interestingly, in the original script, it was leaked on the internet. Haley and Derek were the killers. and they were supposed to be lovers behind Sydney's back.
Oh, wow.
But since it leaked on the internet, they had to rewrite the whole script.
I think I like how it turned out, though.
Oh, me too. Me too. Dewey says that serial killers are typically white males, and Randy says that's what makes it perfect. It's sort of against the rules, but not really. He says that Mrs. Voorhees was a terrific serial killer, and that there's always room for Candyman's daughter. She's sweet, she's diddly, she's bad for your teeth. Then he says, how about Gale? Gale could be planning the next book, and Dewey doesn't believe it.
He now says, somewhat ironically, about Gale, Gale is not a killer. So then there's a point made. If Gale is not a killer, then she is a target.
Yes. Then they compare injuries. Randy shows his neck scar, and Dewey talks about his limp, saying that it was a severed nerve that's causing the limp. Gale is talking with Joel outside. Joel wants to leave. He goes, what happened to your last cameraman? And he's been reading the book, and he found out that Kinney was gutted, though she lets him know that she made that up, that his throat was really slashed.
Yeah, like that's better or something.
Yeah.
I like what he says. Do what any rational human being would do, which is get the fuck out of here. He doesn't want to get slashed.
Right. Sydney wants to quit theater, but her professor, Gus Gold, played by David Warner, who was in Tron, Star Trek VI, and The Omen, he doesn't let her quit. He makes her say, I'm a fighter, until he believes her saying it. Then we get the scene where she's playing Cassandra. The professor tells everybody they're going to go on from the third act one last time. All the cast are wearing this creepy Greek masks. This guy is lowered as the Star of Fate. He's lowered from the rafters, who points at Sydney. Sydney sees Ghostface among the creepy masks, but she might be imagining it, because when she freaks out and falls to the floor, the only masks are Greek masks. The Lambdas take off their mask. We see that they're at the place, so could they have had a scream mask? The professor calls for them to pause. Sydney runs backstage and Derek shows up. She wonders if he's been there the whole time, but he says he's just arrived. She says that Mickey was supposed to escort her, but he said that Mickey had to do some editing, so we switched. He tries to touch her, but she tells him don't and makes him back off. She says she needs to be alone, and he says that isn't the answer, and she says she needs some distance.
Yeah, I also found it strange that Derek just kind of showed up there. It was very sus. I understand that she has to do this performance, and she doesn't want to. The professor was explaining that she must do it, and I kind of felt for her because we've got this girl who's been traumatized by stabbing murders, and now she's in this play where there's stabbing murders happening, or basically the characters are making stabbing motions with knives, and they're wearing masks, just like real life for her.
So Derek says that he guesses he's supposed to be supportive, and he walks away. Outside, we have Gale, Joel, and Dewey. Gale is trying to understand if they're trying to repeat Woodsboro. Gale gets a bunch of calls in a row from someone telling her that Bob really wants to talk to her, and she says that he'll have to wait. Dewey wants to know when she started smoking, and Randy says that ever since those nude pictures showed up of her on the internet. Gale says that the nude pictures were fake. It was her head on top of Jennifer Aniston's body, and there's another Friends reference.
I thought the scene was a bit hilarious. They did, right after Gale was talking about how they might be able to figure out the killer's pattern to determine who will be murdered next, the killer calls Randy on the phone in broad daylight next to Dewey and Gale. To me, a target was clearly selected here.
Sure.
They're trying to figure out the pattern it happened.
But let me go over a bunch of stuff before we get there.
Okay.
You're good. Gale says that few people were killed before City, including the cameraman. And Joel jumps in with this long rant, which I love here. He says, time out. See, I don't need to be hearing about no dead cameraman, all right? Now, warning you guys, I'm a verb away from vacating these premises. I'm going to get me some coffee, donuts, Prozac, see if I can find some crack, Special K, X, not Malcolm, and I'll be back when you guys start talking about something a little more Saved by the Bellish. And then Joel leaves the scene, which I think is hilarious. They argue and trying to figure out who's next, and then the phone rings again, and Randy picks it up. So it's Gale's phone, though, right? So Gale was targeted.
Oh,
but Randy
that's a good
picked up
point.
the phone, right? Right? And he says, Gale's not here, but it turns out to be Ghostface. Randy tells them that it's a killer on the phone, and Gale and Dewey go looking for Ghostface. In a comical scene, they start attacking everyone with cell phones while Randy continues to talk on the phone.
That was sort of like the other hilarious part about this scene is they're going around attacking all these people with cell phones.
It's
trying
awesome.
to figure out because clearly the killer's staring right at them.
From somewhere, right? Yeah.
Somewhere close by.
I love it. So I'm going to go over a few of these comical scenes. Gail snatches a phone out of a woman's hand and asks, "Who is this?" And then the person asks back, "Who's this?" And she answers, "Gail Weathers, author of the Woodsboro Murders." And the woman's like, "Who?" And then Randy asks him, "What's your favorite scary movie?" He asks back Randy, "What's your favorite movie?" And Randy's favorite movie is Showgirls, which I thought was hilarious. Ghostface asks, "Why are you here, Randy? You'll never be the leading man," which pisses Randy off, and Randy is now standing right next to a news van. Dewey and Gail plan a next attack of a guy. Gail says she'll go around the back, and Dewey runs up some stairs. She snatches the phone out of his hand. Meanwhile, Dewey's leaping from the top of some stairs and tackles the guy in the air, and the guy gets sent to the floor, which was not planned. The guy that agreed to do this scene did not know he was going to get tackled by David Arquette flying through the air. Then on the phone, Randy starts talking about Billy, calling him many things, but a mama's boy is one of them. That is when he is grabbed in broad daylight and pulled into the van by Ghostface. And while he's killed, people dance by in a boombox with loud music blaring. The killer gets out of the van, and we see those same boots we saw from the first movie. Then Dewey notices that they've lost track of Randy. Joel returns with a box of Dunkin' Donuts, and they're yelling for Randy. Interestingly, Joel is wearing the same boots that we just saw.
I didn't catch that. Wow.
Then they run to the van. Joel wants to know who broke his window. Dewey opens the door, and Dell screams as they see Randy's body in the van. And while it's been 28 years since I first saw this movie in theater, this death really hurt because I really love his character. And it still affects me. I'm like, how dare they kill Randy?
Yeah, that's an interesting observation about the boots, though, because it throws another person into the mix on who done it.
Sydney's at the library. She gets a message on her computer and doesn't understand how to check it. The man next to her explains to her that it is someone in the library since all the computers are connected. The message opens up, which reads, "You'll die tonight." She jumps up and the bodyguards run to her. And the next message reads, "The cops can't save you." They hide her in a corner and then leave her alone. And this is where Cotton comes around the corner, sounding super creepy.
Yeah, so, like, what? What is it? Wait a minute. So they're trying to protect her. Cotton shows up from out of nowhere when she's left alone so they can go check the computer screen. Like, why? How are you not protecting her?
Cotton says that he wants to talk to her, and he went to prison for a year for her, so the least she can do is talk to him. He wants her to agree to go on Diane Sawyer. She wants to pay them a lot of money to go on there. And we do see, as he's like cornering her and kind of forcing her to go down some stairs as she's trying to back away, we see that he is also wearing those boots.
Oh, no.
He's wearing some blue jeans on top of him.
What? That's good observation, man.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
I think some of it is like special features and them talking about it and stuff of who all is wearing these boots, because a lot of people are wearing them. Sydney says between the movie and the book, people know the truth, but Cotton then gets loud and the cops arrest him. At the police station, the chief wants to know why he attacked Sydney, and he said there was no attack, there was just talking, very heatedly talking. He says that Sydney and him have a complicated past, which last time he checked wasn't a crime. One of the detectives says that murder is a crime, and Cotton tells him to book him if they think he's guilty. And then he says, "I don't know about murder, but you definitely got me on raising my voice in a public library." Also, the station...
Shh. Oh, quiet.
No, I want to be loud. Also, the station, Dewey, Sydney, and Haley. Sydney thinks she should have died instead of Randy and wants to call Randy's mother, but Dewey says that he already called her. Back in the room, Cotton saying, "I'm an innocent man. Don't you guys watch the news until you find me with a knife standing over a dead body." And then they look at him suspiciously. The chief lets Dewey know that they have to let him go because they have nothing on him. Gail is there watching him, and he asks if she's enjoying the show. She asks what he's doing, and he says he's waiting for his 15 minutes of fame. She tells him to not do anything stupid, and he says that after all the work you did to get me out of jail, you wouldn't be having character doubts about me now, would you? Cotton gives Sydney his card, and Dewey takes it away. The chief lets them know that they're going to take her to her dorm room to pack some things and take her somewhere safe. Haley tells Sydney that she'll be with her, and the chief lets her know that they have issued a campus lock-in. Outside, the news is there to interview Cotton, who says it's all been a big misunderstanding. Cotton tries to get Gail to join him, but she doesn't want to. Gail's being interviewed by Debbie Salt, and Gail snaps at her. She's like, look, local woman, I'm not here to do your job.
Back to inside. Right before Cotton left, he left a card on the table for Sid, and Dewey picked it up. And I caught that, and I thought that was kind of odd. Like, that was sus, Dewey. What are you doing here?
I think it was protecting.
You think he was? Yeah, because he's been saying that.
Right. Joel walks up, says that the van has been impounded because it is now official crime scene. He then gives Gail her footage, and he leaves via a cab, which goes down as one of the smartest decisions ever made in horror history.
I did like the shots here outside.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you noticed, but they have an emergency phone in the background while these characters are talking. So, like, while Gail and Joel are talking, and then later Gail and Dewey, all the time there's this emergency phone, like, right behind them. I thought that was odd, too, because they just got out of the police station, so why would you put an emergency phone right next to the police station? But
right.
I did catch, like, the imagery there.
That is funny, yeah. So, the fact that Joel left was the actor's idea. He told Wes Craven, I don't think my character would stick around. I think my character would leave. And Wes Craven said, well, how would you leave? Because his van had just got impounded? He goes, I'd take a cab. And so they got a cab to take him, and it was the actor's idea. I think it's gone down in history as one of the smartest decisions ever. Gail apologizes to Dewey, saying that she feels bad, which she never says. He asks if this is another wonderful Gail Weathers performance, and she says there are no cameras here. She just wants to catch the fucker. He offers to carry her bag and asks what's in it. She says just some crowd footage that Joel shot. That's when she realizes that if the killer is standing around and watching, maybe Joel got them on tape. And Dewey says it's worth a look. So they go to a building, but it apparently took them a long time because now it's nighttime. They go into rooms until they find one with a VCR and TV setup. They start smiling at each other. They bump heads. They basically start falling in love again. And the music turns to romantic. And it sounds like the Top Gun romantic score to me. On the footage, there's footage of them arguing. Dewey said that he was being rude. They both apologize to each other and start kissing, ignoring the footage. This time, Gail ends up on top, which in the first movie, he was on top. The footage changes to footage the killer took of Cece and then footage of Randy before switching to footage of them in the moment. When they notice this, his hand is on Gail's boob, and she's like, Dewey. And Dewey's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, they look for where the killer could be.
Honestly, would you let go, though? Heat of the moment?
We could die at any moment. I need to hold this. That's funny. They find the killer's up in the projection room, so Dewey runs up to chase after Ghostface. And then when he gets up there, he's not there. He comes out to tell Gail that Ghostface isn't there. And that's when another Ghostface jumps up behind the counter and starts chasing Gail. Dewey tries to run down and falls down the stairs. She knocks Ghostface in the face with a phone, just like Stu was hit in the phone in the first movie. Gail's running, searching for an unlocked room to hide in. She enters a recording booth, turns on the lights, and finds that there's no locks on any of these doors that she can use because they're all double deadbolts.
So at some point, the killer is in the room with her. I really like this scene because it was in this like labyrinth of soundproofing walls. So Gail's sneaking away through the soundproof walls. Then Dewey catches up to her. He's got a slightly bloody head, but she can't even hear him because he's on the other side of the soundproof. And of course, the killer comes up behind Dewey at this point.
So as the killer grabs him, he starts to get stabbed. Dewey finally realizes that if he grabs the microphone and screams Gail for her to get away while he's being stabbed to death, and she looks on the other side of the glass as he's falling to the ground, and she thinks he dies right here. She's smart enough to run over and push over a bookshelf so the killer can't get in. She goes to cower down in the corner, and then when she looks up, Ghostface is gone. Interesting behind the scenes stuff, she kept telling Wes that she didn't think she could act scared enough on camera, but he said that she did an amazing job. She really sold it.
I think so, yeah. So the killer leaves abruptly here. He or she could have gone after Gail some more, but the killer just up and leaves.
We cut to Derek as Sydney's being escorted somewhere else. Hallie is going with her, and she tells the detectives that she's their therapist and just throws her luggage at them like they're chauffeurs.
And that made me suspect Derek a little bit because the killer leaves abruptly. And then Derek shows up here when Sydney's leaving with her friend. And I was just wondering, like, Derek just seems to, like, show up.
Sure, but then also Haley is being allowed to go with her, which I think the cops shouldn't allow Haley to go with her.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so those bodyguard agent cops get them in the back of their big Chevy Caprice.
As they drive off, we see Derek is still there. We see someone in the background behind the trees running in like a cloak-like thing. Derek looks around, doesn't see them, and then someone in a brown cloak comes out, pointing at Derek and telling him prepare to die, then states that he gave up his letters. Several fraternity brothers carry him off as 3 Lambda girls are cheering. Then we cut to a party where he's tied to the Star of Fate from the drama production. They're pouring beer all over him and down his crotch. They ask him who he loves, and he says Sydney. And the brother asks him, did you say my Omega Kappa Beta brothers? And he goes, no, I said Sydney.
Which is why he gave her the letters.
Right.
But he also said right before that, he said, it's gold. Yeah, I don't know if you caught that. Right. They're pouring beer in his
crotch. What a waste of beer. Cut to Sydney and Haley in the car. Haley seems bored and asks where they're taking them. And one of the detectives jokes, if we tell you, we have to kill you. Right then, Ghostface arrives, smashes the driver's window, and slashes one of the detectives' throats. Then the other detective leaps out of the car, but isn't fast enough to draw his gun as Ghostface starts beating him. Sydney and Haley are both locked in the back. Ghostface gets into the driver's seat, and one of the cops that is not dead points his gun at him. He puts it in a drive, and the cop doesn't shoot, maybe because he's afraid he'll accidentally hit one of the girls. The cop is dragged along and never fires, though he keeps threatening that he's going to. Ghostface drives into a construction area and crashes, sending a metal pipe through the cop's head. Ghostface is knocked out in the driver's seat.
So the girls are still locked in the back, and they're trying to get out. And Sid's friend says, you're not supposed to get out. It's a cop car, so they can't get out the back doors, and they're sort of trapped.
Then Sydney notices that the pipe that had killed the second detective has dislodged part of the grate that holds them back there, so she starts to pull it down. She's able to get into the front. The passenger side is against a wall, so she can't escape that way. She's got to crawl over Ghostface, and as she's trying to do it quietly, she honks the horn, which doesn't wake him up. She's outside now, but she still can't open the door for Haley, so Haley's going to have to do the same thing that she did. As they run away, Sydney wants to go back to take off the mask.
I was wondering, because she almost did it when she was crawling out of the car, and then she didn't. She hesitated, I guess, to not wake up Ghostface. Right. But then it's like, why not just rip off the mask?
I know. So Haley says, stupid people go back, smart people run. She tells Haley she's sick of running. So she leaves Haley back there. When she gets back to the car, Ghostface is gone. Haley asks what, and Ghostface jumps out from behind her and kills her. And Sydney runs off.
Yeah, too late. Your friend is dead. Not only did Sydney run off, but I noticed that the killer didn't pursue her at this point, which I found was odd because, like, the killer seems to be everywhere. And now she's running off and nobody's trailing her.
Back at the college, Gale finds Cotton with blood on his hands. He tries to tell her it isn't what it looked like, and he just found Dewey and was trying to help.
Shit. Bad timing on his part.
So Gale runs out, sees Debbie Salt on the phone. She hangs up the phone on Debbie Salt. She's like, hey, I was using that. And she's like, I'll give you your story. Cotton Weary is the fucking killer. And that guy cannot catch a break. I felt so bad. Sydney runs back to campus and goes to where the drama department is. She's looking for anyone who could help. On the stage, the light points at Sydney. Then the stage walls come down and trap Sydney in. Derek is dropped down and hangs unconscious on the Fate's star where he wears the Greek mask, but she can tell it's him. She walks up to him, and he's thankful because he would thought he would be up there till opening night. She tells him that Ghostface killed Haley, and the killer is here. She starts to untie him, but then Ghostface shows up, saying not to trust him. Do you really want to trust your boyfriend? When he does this, though, he says it not as Ghostface, and you can tell it's Mickey, though we haven't seen him in the last 40 minutes. The last time we saw him was the cafeteria scene. So it's crazy. Like, oh yeah, he is a character in this movie. He pulls off the mask saying, surprise, Sydney. Mickey then claims to be working alongside Derek, the killer, since he is his best friend, and it seems likely to Sydney. Derek says that she knows him better than that, but now Sydney won't untie him. Derek tells Mickey that he's going to fucking kill him, and Mickey shoots Derek. Sydney tells Derek that she's sorry, and he says he would have never hurt her, and he dies. Mickey tells Sydney that she really has got to work on her trust issues. I mean, poor Derek. He was completely innocent and such a nice boy, too. He's bright, funny, and handsome, decent singing voice, and he was going to be a doctor. He adds that he was a kind boy you could take home to mom if she had a mom. She tells him, fuck you, and he asks if Billy would have let her talk to him that way. She says that Billy was a sick fuck just like Mickey. Mickey says Billy was a sick fuck that wanted to get away with it, and Mickey is a sick fuck that wants to get caught.
And have fun in the trial. And he wants to blame the cinema. He wants to blame others. He's just going to have fun. He drops a few names that were popular in the 90s. Cochran, I think, was the lawyer for O.J. Simpson, and there were a few others he dropped there.
Yeah. Sidney tries to run off. He turns around, quick to point the gun at her. She calls him psychotic. He keeps talking about the show he has given the audience. She lowers the necklace of letters in her hand so she can use it as a weapon. He goes on talking about Billy, and Sidney tells him, you're forgetting one thing about Billy Loomis. I fucking killed him. And then she whacks him across the face with the necklace and kicks the gun out of his hand. Instead of trying for the gun, she runs the other direction, and he tackles her onto the floor. They do fight for a bit, and she does land some really good shots before Mickey gets the gun back. He then pulls out a knife and tells Sidney that she has a Linda Hamilton thing going on, and he likes it. Derek's dead body is pulled back up to the rafters, and Mickey yells, now who's doing that? Could that be our mystery guest waiting in the wings? He tells her that he already told her that he had a partner and a surprise cameo just for you. Out of the door walks Gail, and for a second, Sidney thinks she's in on it, but then Debbie Salt walks out holding Gail at gunpoint.
And Gail is like sort of shaking her head no. Like
it's not me.
Please don't.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not the killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so she walks in, and we discover that's Billy's mother, Mrs. Loomis.
Yeah.
Who's behind Gail. And so I thought this was interesting. I thought there was a parallel here to Friday the 13th, where Jason's mother was a killer. Now we have Billy's mother as a killer.
Yeah.
And I also, at this point, I was like, wait a minute, Loomis. That sounds familiar.
Yep.
Dr. Loomis
Yep.
from Halloween. So I thought there were a couple of parallels here. I don't know if they meant to do that.
Well, they did.
But it was,
they
totally.
The writer definitely
those
credits
hidden.
Halloween as one of his favorite inspirations. And in the first Scream movie, they are watching Halloween. And they reference a lot of movies with Jamie Lee Curtis in them, which are a lot of fun. But
So,
Loomis is definitely.
Yeah. And Mrs. Loomis is bent on avenging her son Billy's death. She wants to kill Sidney. Yeah.
What I love that. So Gail's like, wait, what? And she's like, no, I've seen pictures of you. And Sidney says that she lost a lot of weight and had some work done. What I love, though, is Mickey's reaction when Gail figures it out. And he looks up in the air and yells, Billy's mother! Which he's like, I bet you didn't see that twist coming, did you? Which is hilarious. And I definitely didn't. On the first watch, I did not suspect Debbie Salt.
Almost had a total mood change here. Like, he went from the sort of subdued person to like this hyperactive, crazy, psychotic killer.
Yeah, and you find out that they met on a serial killer's website. He said he needed some backing because tuition was expensive. So he didn't plan on going to this college. He only went to this college so he can get at Sydney.
So, like, the FBI doesn't know about the serial killers' websites?
I don't know. Maybe it's
Top
on the
10 most wanted. Or
maybe
like
it's
members.
maybe it's on the Onion or whatever. Mrs. Loomis says that she's lucky because there's only 97 active serial killers in the country, so Mickey was quite a find. He only needed a little guidance, and Sydney adds that only a mother could give. And Mickey says he can't wait for the trial, and Miss Loomis tells him there isn't going to be a trial, raises the gun. Sydney and Gail duck out of the way as Mrs. Loomis shoots Mickey 3 times. Mickey's gun goes off and shoots Gail, who falls off stage. Mickey then collapses on the floor, and Mrs. Loomis says, 2 birds, 1 stone. Mrs. Loomis calls Mickey crazy and kicks him to make sure he's dead. Sydney asks if she thinks she is not crazy, and she says she's very sane. She pulls out the gun from Mickey's hands and says her motivation is good old-fashioned revenge since Sydney killed her son. Sydney tells Mrs. Loomis that she'll never get away with it. We have the Bond moment where the bad guy lays out their whole plan. Everything traces back to Mickey, even the gun that he took away from the cops. She cleans the prints off of one of the gun and throws it, saying that Sydney and Mickey got into a shootout and killed each other. She goes on to say that if they want to try and find a second killer, Debbie Salt doesn't exist. Sydney says that she's as crazy as Billy. Mrs. Loomis says that Randy spoke poorly of Billy and she got a little knife happy.
Oh, so now we know she was the one in the van. And so Randy had just said something bad about Billy on the phone.
Right, calling him as like a pussy and a mama's boy.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because Gail was the target. And they just mentioned that Gail was the target. And it was Gail's phone that was ringing, but Randy picked it up. Then Randy made the mistake of talking bad about Billy, and that's why Randy was killed.
Then, yeah.
Mrs. Loomis says she's tired of everybody blaming the parent and says that if we need to blame anybody, she needs to blame Sydney's mom, who is also a parent. Hello. But she then says that Sydney's mom stole her husband, adding that Sydney then took her boy away. Mrs. Loomis tells Sydney that she doesn't know what it's like to be a mother. Sydney points out that Mrs. Loomis abandoned Billy and asks, isn't Mickey supposed to be dead? Mrs. Loomis falls for this. Sydney smashes a bottle over her head and runs backstage. Mrs. Loomis tries to shoot the door using a lot of ammo. One of these shots hits one of the stage ropes, which gives Sydney an idea.
Now she does some really cool theatrical effects. I liked what Sydney is doing here. Because they're on the stage for the play, so she's got a lot of theatrical lights and props and scenes all around her.
Yeah. And Wes Craven actually pointed out that he had saw a movie a long time ago that used this fan with red cellophane paper that kind of went up.
I made
as
one
the
of those.
Fire.
Yeah,
and he said
he
always
cool.
wanted to put it in a movie, so this was his time to get to do that.
I did like that. I made them. I used to do these Halloween events, and so I made it a couple times.
You made awesome haunted houses. My kids love going to your haunted houses. So Mrs. Loomis tries to climb a wall, but Sydney sends the wall crashing down and crashing her. And I was like, why is the stage wall so heavy? You're asking to kill a cast member. Sydney turns off all the effects, and Mrs. Loomis jumps out with a knife, and they fight. Next to them is a gun on the ground. They both struggle for control of the knife. A gunshot goes off, and they both look to see Cotton is there, and he looks like he's cleaned up, and he's wearing a different shirt now.
But Mrs. Loomis sort of has the upper hand at this point, because she's behind Sydney.
With the knife, right?
Yeah.
And Cotton wants to know what the fuck is going on. Sydney says, Cotton, meet Billy Loomis's mother, and she's the killer. Cotton backs up and almost trips over Mickey and asking who's that. And Sydney says, that's the other killer, Mickey. Mrs. Loomis offers Cotton a starring role if she could just kill Sydney. When Cotton doesn't agree, she yells, she sent you to prison for a year. Cotton starts to point the gun at Sydney, saying that she makes a good point, and then adds, I bet you that Diane Sawyer looks really good right about now. After a pause, Sydney says, consider it done. Mrs. Loomis looks scared in this moment, and Cotton shoots Mrs. Loomis.
Now, I took that as Sydney's telling Cotton that she's okay with going on national TV with him later to talk.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, that's fine. I'll get rid of your killer.
That's what he wanted. That's what he wanted.
That's so bad. When he first came onto the scene, I was like, okay, Cotton's going to be the hero. And then as soon as Mrs. Loomis started twisting his mind, I was like, okay, this could go either direction. Interesting.
Cotton says that was intense, and he looks really shocked. Sydney walks to him, and he wants her to know that he would never have hurt her. Sydney tells him to give her the gun, and he does. Cotton says they should probably get their story straight. As Sydney checks Mrs. Loomis' body, that's when Gail's hand comes in a jump scare.
Now, there's a great line here that comes up, too. I don't know. They always come back. Because she's concerned now. So, like, Gail's coming up on the stage. They thought Gail was dead.
Right.
And now they've got two killers they're staring at.
So they're looking at Mrs. Loomis, but then Mickey jumps up, and Gail was like, give me one of those guns. And so both Gail and Sydney just fire and put a bunch of rounds into Mickey. Then Sydney looks at Mrs. Loomis and shoots her in the head one more time. She's like, just in case. And Cotton's like, whoa. The chief is on the scene. It's daytime with several ambulances in attendance, and EMS tells Gail that she needs to take it easy since she has some broken ribs. That's when Joel returns, handing her a mic, and is ready to record the news. She's about to start when she hears someone call out that they have a live one. She gives back the mic, and she sees that Dewey is alive. Oh my gosh.
Dewey survived, and they said that the knife went through old scar tissue.
Yeah, which I thought was such BS. Like, what the heck? The news comes to speak with Sydney, and Joel asks if she could tell them what it is like to be a hero. She says, talk to Cotton. He's the man you want to interview. He's the real hero. Cotton smiles at Sydney, who holds her necklace and walks away. They all ask Cotton to tell them what happened, and he says that there's definitely time and a place and a fee for this, and he hands them his card. They ask him to tell him something, and he says that it'll make a hell of a movie. Sydney walks away through the campus, and the camera pans away, and we do see another news crew trying to interview her. Then Collective Soul's She's Sad starts playing in the credits. In this scene, the camera is in a helicopter, and Wes Craven, when he was filming this footage, he kept thinking, oh my gosh, this is how great directors always die. Like a helicopter crashes. But they filmed a lot. They filmed like a whole day, and they said a lot of it was blurry, a lot of it wasn't good, but they got enough to just do what they needed. Anything else you want to say about it?
I thought it was interesting that this movie is taking place with sort of the original story kind of rolling in the background, or the movie about Stab in the background the entire movie long. Like there's bits and pieces where it's just up on a TV screen or something like that. Yeah, it's a lot of parallels with the first movie for sure.
And what's cool about it is it goes on throughout the franchise. So in a slight spoiler alert for the third one, they are filming the third Stab movie in Scream 3, and Stab 2 has already come out, which is fun. And just because I like to cover it as much as possible, the guns in the movie were second generation Glock 17 9mm.
Oh, okay. Good to know. They were nice guns.
Yeah, right.
Two other things that I didn't like so much about the Scream was I thought the Scream movies are a bit long. And I know that for people who like to find a lot of little Easter eggs and slowly discover who the killer is, that creates like some suspense and interest for them. But I found that they sort of lacked originality. They're pulling in from a lot of other movies, and they seemed a bit long to me. But I don't know if you get the same feeling. And maybe it's because I've watched some other movies recently that were shorter, and I felt like they were packed more densely with more interesting subjects.
Sure. It could be because I love the movie so much that I don't notice its length. And I'm a sucker for a long movie. I just bought the Midsummer Director's Cut, which is 9 minutes short of 3 hours. And then the Dr. Sleep Director's Cut, which is 3 hours.
There's like 2-hour movies. The Scream 2 is a 2-hour
right,
movie.
Exactly. But yeah, so I love long movies. But I know when the movie definitely feels long, but I guess to me this did not.
Okay.
I do love the whole franchise as a whole, so maybe that's why. My kids do too.
Okay, and then I know that product placement happens a lot in movies, but it started to get a little bit annoying to me when Baskin Robbins or Dunkin' Donuts was showing up. A lot of movies, they'll sort of make a point to like blur out something or make it a plain box or so you don't know, but it was blatantly obvious that they were...
That's funny.
They definitely had some product placement going on. One cool thing is I liked Luke Wilson's brief cameo
as
Billy in Stab. That was
awesome.
Pretty cool. I loved him in Idiocracy. I thought he did a great job.
Yes, yeah. All right. Well, next week Joseph will be here to cover Scream 3. Steven will be back when we get to Scream 6. So I'm excited to cover that one with you.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. This is Nightmare Echoes. We have episodes every Monday. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, we're at Nightmare Echoes Pod. Thank you, Steven, for being here.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. Well, hope you listen to us again. Bye.
Bye, everyone.